Welcome to the Human First podcast with me, Adrian Murphy. I'm here with Steph Wall today from the Cali Collective. We'll get into what that is in a wee moment. In case you haven't heard, Steph, I'm sure you have. You said you're an avid listener, but we're here to just have a really good conversation, to be honest. Find out a bit about your story, you know, what you do, why you do what you do, any inspirations, aspirations that you might have, and just also how you view, you know, your career, your life, money, family, that whole kind of melting pot of stuff, and how you manage all of that. Because I'm sure you'll have some interesting insights given what you do. So maybe, do you want to give us a wee bit of background?
Where should I start?
Start in Canada, I guess.
Oh, gosh.
In case your accent hasn't given it away already.
Yeah. So I'm Canadian. I moved here. It'll be 10 years in April.
Right? Yeah.
I did not plan on that, by the way.
No.
I did not know that's what was going to happen. It was supposed to be a year. I was going to come over. I was traveling lots at the time. And I was going to come over and do just a year in Glasgow and work teaching yoga for other studios and stuff, and that's just not what happened at all. And now it's been almost 10 years, and here I am.
That's incredible.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
So in case you haven't guessed, Steph's a yoga instructor.
Yes, sorry. Yes, so I am a yoga instructor. Yes, so
visiting random yoga studios offering your services.
That's right. Right. So, all right. So going back to Canada. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll share how I got to Glasgow from Canada. Yeah. So basically, I got into yoga when I was about 18 or 19, so it was many moons ago. And it's your typical story of like, you'll find this with a lot of people who come to yoga is, you know, I was just stressed. I was anxious. I was questioning life and what is this? And I'm not happy. And was in university and isn't this what I'm supposed to be doing? But it didn't feel good. And it wasn't, I don't know. I was just not in a great place. And someone had recommended yoga to me and I knew nothing about it. I thought it was going to be like I had no idea actually. Had no idea. And I remember just going to my first class, and it wasn't like, oh, I went to one class and I was like totally converted. It wasn't anything like that. But I went to one class and I was like, wow, I didn't like hate life for an hour. That's unusual. Yeah. Okay. So then I went back and I was like, okay, no, there's something to this. I'm kind of interested in this. Meanwhile, I was struggling through university. I ended up leaving university twice.
What were you studying at university?
So the first time, I went in for psychology.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. But I don't know, I'm a very creative person. I like to, I don't know, it just wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. And so I left 6 months. No, I did a year, 6 months, something like that. And then I took off for what was supposed to be 6 months of travel. And that turned into 6 years of traveling. So I left uni, and meanwhile doing all the traveling and whatnot, that's where that intersection with yoga kind of took place.
Right, okay.
And I'd be traveling, you know, wherever I happened to be, and I'd pick up a yoga class and I'd be like, I really like this. And then after many years of practice, I decided to do my teacher training in Nicaragua. And that's when I was like, right, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. Like I'm very lucky and very grateful that I found that thing. But I just remember thinking like, oh yeah, no, this is what I'm meant to be doing, which is such a special feeling to have found that, especially at that age. And so I knew that's what I was going to do. And I did that in Canada for a few years, but I was still sort of traveling. So basically the way I lived for many years was I would travel until I ran out of money, come back to Canada, make as much money as I could, work 2-3 jobs, work, and then take off again. Yeah. And it's a great way to live for that time. I learned so much and I saw so much. So it was a great way to live. And so that's where, and so the Glasgow thing, so I'd never actually been anywhere and like worked.
Right.
I just would go to wherever, Asia, Africa, Europe, wherever, and just backpack. But I was like, I wonder what it'd be like to like go abroad and like actually work somewhere. And my dad's British, so I knew I could get a visa here. And when I was in that teacher training I told you about in Nicaragua, I met a Glaswegian girl named Jenny, and we became pals.
No way.
Yeah. And so she's the one who's like, Glasgow is pretty cool. And I was like, okay. Obviously, I had no idea. I had never been here. But I just thought of Scotland. I was like, oh, kilts and bagpipes, and that sounds real cool. I'm going to go do that. And so I came over here, just it was supposed to be a year. And the whole plan was I would teach for, studios here, because back in Canada, yoga is very, very developed. There's yoga studios on every corner. And so I kind of thought it would be the same thing when I got here. However, it wasn't. Yeah. And so there's nowhere for me to work. There's nowhere for me to get a job. I applied at gyms and different yoga, there's a couple yoga studios, but no one was interested. So that's why I opened up my own studio, because I couldn't find work here. And so I was like, I'll just open it for a year and see what happens. And then it just kind of took off. So now I'm here.
Wow.
For good.
Yeah.
I think.
Is that you?
I think.
No more traveling?
No, I think that's kind of out of my system.
Yeah?
Yeah, a little bit. It's different when you get older. My values have changed. When I was young and free-spirited and whatever, but I've got a dog now and a partner and a house and, these things that are important to me. So I'm much more settled in that regard. Yeah. But, I'm also just, when I try to plan life too much, I cut myself short, and I'm not open to the amazing possibilities that are out there. So I try to just stay open, and, I think I'll be here in a year, and 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I don't know. But I just, you don't know, right? You can't plan these things. You just have to kind of see where life takes you.
Why do you think Cali took off so well? What about you, or your values, or how you I guess probably not. Maybe it is a bit about how you teach yoga, but is it something is there something in the yoga and the mindfulness and all that stuff that helped you in that business practice that made it better?
So a couple of things. First of all, the style that I am originally trained in, which is called Vinyasa, wasn't a thing here. Yeah. There was maybe a couple teachers doing it, but it was not, there weren't Vinyasa yoga studios here. It was very Ashtanga and Bikram, which I didn't teach, and it wasn't my jam. So yoga definitely was here, but not the style that I taught. And again, maybe there were, and I didn't really know about it. So that brought its challenges, because when I opened up the studio, it was a new style, and people are like, what's this? But it's a great style. And not that the others aren't, but I think people are like, ooh, cool, what's this? And also I had been teaching for, 4 years at that time in Canada, which is everyone does yoga, everyone and their dog does yoga. So I had lots of ideas, and I was inspired, and so we were doing cool events, and just, I don't know, maybe doing things a little bit differently, and people caught on to that. And it wasn't I don't want to make it out to be we opened the doors and then it just exploded. It wasn't that. There was, I did my share of showing up and no one was there, and then showing up and two people were there, and then showing up and then one person was there. And, so I did my time in that regard. But after about 6 months or so, I knew, okay, we're on to something here. And then it just grew arms and legs from there. And every year it does, and in different ways.
That's fantastic. Well, we were talking earlier about, bringing it slightly further up to date, having a physical studio, and then not being able to teach classes for a period of time. But you found opportunity in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the time which no one speaks about anymore, the C word.
We try not to, but it seems to come up all the time.
I know. Well, I think when you're talking about business, it's hard to just ignore that, because that was a really pivotal time for a lot of businesses. Because you either, well, at least the way I saw it, it was I've got a couple choices here. I can call it quits and fold it. Keep in mind when, and you'll know this yourself, when we first found out about what was going on, we didn't know it was going to be 2 years.
No, we didn't. We all thought it would be a month or something.
Totally.
Or 3 weeks or so
I was like, okay, no, I'm not gonna close this at this point. That just seems silly. I could have just, survived and done what I needed to do to keep the business alive. But I'm I don't know. There was a part of me that was this could be an opportunity to grow this business in a way and push me into a place that like I wouldn't have been pushed into otherwise. So I saw it as like an opportunity of like, right, I'm quite an adaptable person, and that really worked well in this situation because I was like, right, I just gotta, the show must go on. Like, I gotta just be creative here. And thank goodness some of those creative ideas really impacted us and still are impacting us. Like we were talking about before, taking things online, and I started an on-demand platform, and I did it quick. That was the other thing, is that a lot of people ended up doing this, but I think one of the things that really helped with Cali is that I did it very quick. So before what day was it? March 12th or whatever. Before that day, we were already live streaming. So when we got shut down, we were already set.
I'd forgotten, because that was the time that we were coming to the studio. And I remember when you first started doing your online lessons, because we subscribed. We used to,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, just when you say on demand there, I'd totally forgotten about that. Yeah.
Well, obviously you weren't using it.
Well, we did for a while.
Fair enough. No, it's okay. I'm not offended.
We'll let it slip a bit.
Fair enough. It's okay. Well, thank you for joining us for that short period of time. But those are things that are still with us today. Like we still do on demand. We still have an on demand platform, and we still live stream almost all of our classes. We do events that are just for online people as well.
Right.
So that stayed with us. Yeah.
And do you find, because again, one of the other themes that comes up is this lack of connection or desire for connection, that there's a bit of a circuit break there. Do you find that people that use on demand use the studio as well? It's not totally like polarized?
I wouldn't say it's polarized, no.
Just convenience, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And we can jump online kind of idea.
Yeah.
And I guess part of that, being able to do that, do you think your previous life where traveling and just being out, because travel is such a great way to expand the mind, but also building resilience through different experiences, meet different people, and just have to put yourself out there. Did all of that experience play a part in you doing that?
100%. 100%. I, we don't have to go into this, but I had a lot of struggles as a kid, which took me to finding yoga, right? I was circling back to that, saying that like I was really, I don't want to say depressed, but I was just not happy at all. Very stressed, very anxious, questioning everything. Right. And I did face a lot of challenges growing up. And, it's one of those things at the time, it was hell. And I would never wish that upon anybody. But those are the things that I needed to get me to be where I am today, and the resiliency that I have today, and just that adaptability. Because if life were easy and everything was rosy and cheery, I just don't think I'd have the stamina, the drive, the resiliency that I have now. And so I'm very grateful that I've always been very independent ever since I was like a kid, very independent woman, and a lot of those travels I did on my own, and at a young age too. I took off when I was 19, and I was traveling places like Africa and Asia, and went to Russia. I was just telling someone the other day, I was like, I went on a trip to Russia, and I've been to many, many cool places, and lots of it on my own. And there's something that gets built when you spend that time on your own. Yeah. So I'm very grateful for all of those experiences. Yeah, you got to make something from it. Otherwise, you just I made a choice, and I don't know when, and I don't know how, but I made a choice that I wasn't going to be a victim to the challenges that I experienced as a child and growing up. And still, I mean, we all face challenges, and it's how are you going to meet it? Are you going to be a victim to it? Or are you gonna move through it and grow from it?
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced in particularly building a business from scratch in a strange foreign land like Scotland?
Oh my gosh. Some of the biggest challenges, I think just when I first got here, I didn't know anybody. So even though I'm saying, I'm so independent, it was hard not having a community, and I had to build that from scratch. And so I knew one person, my friend Jenny. I knew one person, And so it's not like I had like a following and then I opened up a studio and everyone came to the studio.
Yeah.
I was building up that following and trying to build up a business at the same time. And I also felt, because I was teaching vinyasa, which was a different style, and I don't want to think this, but there's a part of me that's like, I'm kind of an outsider not being Scottish, that I didn't really feel very welcomed into the yoga community, which is so not what yoga's about.
No.
But the yoga community is its own special thing. So, my goodness.
So is there a competitive aspect to that?
Oh my gosh, like everything, I think.
Of course.
Yeah, there is. But to be honest, and I'm not trying to make myself sound like I'm better than anybody else, but I do try my best just to stay out of it and just head down. I focus on Cali. I focus on what's important to me. And I'm busy. Like, I'm also so I'm back at university, just so you know, for the third time.
No way.
For the third time.
Hang on, we've missed the second time.
Right,
Skip
so
that.
First time was psychology, and that's when I left. And then I was traveling all over the place, and then I thought I'd become like a savior. So I went back for political science, because I was like, I'm going to work for the UN and change the world. And I did 1 year of that and realized that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I can't do politics. That's not for me.
Yeah.
And so I left, and now I'm back for music. I'm doing music production.
Music? Really?
Yeah.
Music production?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know.
Right. This isn't with an eye on a new career, or is it?
It's a passion.
Yeah.
Again, that's another gift from COVID is when I was young, I played lots of different instruments. I just always loved music. And then I kind of fell away and pursued sports instead. And then during COVID, we had so much time on our hands. So I was like, I'm just going to get into, try DJing and doing this, because I was just by myself in my flat. And I fell in love with it. And I was like, okay, I want to learn more. I want to really pursue this. And so when you've got a degree and a business and friends and family and a dog, I just don't have time to really pay attention to what other people are doing.
Yeah.
So
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gone with you.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Because I think I'd go mad if I was watching what other people were doing and comparing and competing, and yeah. Yeah.
It's a pretty pointless exercise. It's never going to make you feel good.
No.
Right.
You're never going to feel better from it. It's always
somebody that you perceive to be better or whatever.
It's just not helpful. It's not helpful to watch what other people do. It doesn't help my business at all.
No,
I never get great ideas. It's not like I look at what other people are doing and be like, oh my God, I'm going to do that. No, there's no point. Yeah. And it's not, yoga, it's so antithetical to what yoga is. Yeah. As well, so
that what's the ethos of Cali then? What makes Cali different? Talk to me a bit about being different and vinyasa. Maybe just explain what that is for people who aren't familiar with it.
What vinyasa is? So vinyasa is a style that's very fluid and playful, and it's almost got like a dance-like quality to it. So there's like that continual movement. It's very expressive. The teachers will come up with different sequences every time. There's not one set sequence, so you never really know what you're getting. Which can be a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, it's just very different. It's very creative. And for me, because I'm quite a creative person, I just love that outlet. Yeah. Because even creating the sequencing to me is like an art form. Yeah. And so I love taking time to figure out the sequences and whatnot. But what makes Cali different? So I guess maybe I should explain Cali.
Yeah, please. Okay. Right. That's good. It's a good start.
Yes. Yeah. So this is one of the greatest and most difficult choices I've made is to name my studio after the Hindu goddess for death and destruction. Because
please continue.
Yes. Okay. I don't think I knew what I was doing at the time. I just thought the name sounded cool, and I was like, I remember Googling Cali, and it was like goddess for transformation, and did it. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And so we named it the Cali Collective. And then which is not how I think gods and goddesses should be treated, or any tradition should be treated. I was just sort of like using the name, and I thought it was cool and whatnot. So not very, not much integrity there. But as time went on, I started to develop my relationship with Cali. And so Cali is the Hindu goddess, and she is... Well, let me explain it this way. Okay. You tell me, Adrian, have you ever in your life had experiences where you've just been like brought to your knees, where like the foundation that you thought was secure, whether it's a job or a house or a relationship or the life that you thought or belief that you had, you thought that was it. And you thought you were, and then the whole world crumbles. And you're like in despair. That's the energy of Callie.
Right.
So she comes in and she just like rips stuff up to help you see, maybe I'll put it this way. Another example is like, often I remember, in my youth dating people, and, they'd break up with you and it'd be like the worst thing in the world and your whole world is over.
Yeah.
And then you look back a couple years later and you're like, wow, thank God, like dodged a bullet with that one, right? So that energy, that's the Callie energy. Like she comes in and she's like, she shakes things up. And at the time you're like, this is awful. But then you look back and you're like, oh, I actually needed that in order to grow, in order for something new to be birthed and created. So she is all about like, oh, you think you know, you think you're so smart? Let me just like cut all these ties, all these egoic constructs, all these identities that you have about yourself, any sense of security that you have. Just shakes things up so that you actually can see more of your potential and you can grow and you can birth new things, right? We all avoid the death of things. We hold on to jobs and relationships, even though it's hurting us and it's not in our best interest. We'd rather that than go through the breakup or whatever. And when really, if you just let the death come, let winter come, there's always going to be a spring. Yeah. And so Callie's that energy of that transition from winter to spring of like, let's destroy some things here so that things can be birthed.
Yeah. How does, again, yoga, right, and everything that's about, how do you reconcile that with, obviously, the desire to have a nice life?
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky. I think for me, and this is the honest truth, and it's ebbed and flowed. I wouldn't say at the early stages. Well, the early stages, remember, I came here and it's that typical like immigrant story where I didn't have a whole lot of money. Like I could have relied on my parents, I'm sure, if I needed it, but like I didn't have a whole lot. So I had to pay those bills. Yeah. And so there was a certain drive there that was based on money because I had to. Yeah. And then I got into the teacher trainings and I was making bigger money and I was like, oh, I like this. But then, after a couple of years, I checked myself and I realized that what's more meaningful for me at the end of the day is that I'm contributing to the community in a way that isn't driven by money. So of course I have bills to pay at Callie and I have bills to pay in my own life, but I wouldn't say that Callie is like a profit-driven enterprise. And again, it's taken me probably 9 years to get here, but it's something that it's passionate, it's creative, I love it, it's heartfelt, it's soulful, and then the bill, it just comes. Like there's flow there.
Yeah.
And when I start chasing, because I know what that feels like to chase money and to do things where there's so many things I know that are profitable. I would just start doing teacher training again. Or there's certain events that I know that would bring in money, more money than I've got right now, but I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to spend my time. That's not the work I want to do. So it's, resisting those, the ego wanting all of those things and just at the end of the day being like, well, what's really meaningful to me? What matters to me? And it's not having a ton of money. But in saying that, I've got a really nice life.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you do things, you hear this all the time, but I feel like when you do lead with heart and passion, you find your flow.
Yeah.
And when you find your flow, things just flow.
That's exactly. You don't need to work at the outcome. The outcome just happens.
Yes, exactly. Right? Which is a very yoga philosophy. Is like you just focus on the work.
Yeah.
Don't focus on the outcome. Yeah. Don't have the expectations.
Can't do the outcome, right.
Yeah. Just let it flow. Yeah. But it takes time.
Yeah. Well, that and it's patience is something that is in short supply these days. With the world we live in now, everything has to be instant. It's here. It's all this stuff, and and I think that there is a kind of strange perception of because you see one person who's gone from suddenly nowhere to this wonderful life without having to do any actual work. And you go, oh, I'll have some of that. Everybody wants some of that. It's very unsatisfying. The hard work is where the satisfaction comes from, the sense of achievement and fulfillment.
100%. And just meaning.
Yeah.
Like, is your work meaningful? That's something that I ask myself all the time. Like, is this meaningful? And I can feel when I'm doing something just to go through the motions, or I'm doing something just for money. There's a very different feel.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I feel differently than when I do something and like, I don't even know how much I got paid for doing that, but I love that experience.
Yeah. You must have had along the way some great teachers, people like that have offered advice, and is there some great wisdom you can share with us that
I just think, again, this is so cheesy, but I've never been led astray when I lead with heart and when I lead with intuition. Like when I actually listen into my intuition, I never get led astray. But when I move with like head and ego space, I lose myself.
Right.
And so it's just for me, like something that's been so important is, and that I wish, and I hope others can tune into, is that, everything you already need is inside. The wisdom that you need is inside. We all have an intuitive sense within. We all have passions and are heartfelt, and it's just like letting that come forward and trusting that if you express from heart and if you listen to your intuitions, a whole different world will open up for you. I just lived in my head for so long that when I'm experiencing the contrast, and the contrast is so much nicer.
Yeah. For those of us who find it hard to quieten our minds and listen, how is there anything you can offer us that might help with that?
No, you're
just
screwed.
Asking for a friend. By the way.
I think I'm supposed to say meditate and all that sort of thing, but I find that if you have a busy mind, actually meditation can be really, really probably the last thing you want to do. But you'll know yourself from all the sports that you do, all the training that you do, even if it's like doing something, swimming, running, weightlifting, whatever, doing something that you really love and letting yourself get to that space where you're not thinking so much. Because usually it's when I'm doing yoga, but also when I'm like weightlifting or on my Peloton or something that I feel so clear, and that's where I get lots of ideas. Or I'm quite artistic. I like to just like draw and journal and scribble and that sort of thing. And that's where I sometimes get ideas as well. So doing something active that takes you out of your head. And then eventually that will become your yoga. And then eventually that will become your meditation. But I do, I meditate every day, and that's a really important part of my practice, just to start my day off quiet.
Yes.
And that's another place where I get lots of ideas. Yeah. So just giving yourself that time and space to just be quiet. Yeah. And that's not Netflix. And that's not,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Looking at your phone. Again, it's quite common theme. I was talking to somebody else about that, and I do try and sit in the morning. We were talking about routines and morning routines and stuff, and setting yourself up right for the day. And again, in today's busy world, we're all connected, but maybe not as connected as we might hope. Just sitting, even I might try and meditate or have an app on or something, but sometimes it just allows stuff to work its way through, not necessarily sitting there and total zen. But it's like just let stuff percolate, just drip, 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 work its way through. And event, you solve problems, things will come to you. Yep. That's when you can be a bit creative. Rather than, otherwise I'll get annoyed at myself that I can't quieten down.
Totally. You know what's so underrated? Breathing.
Yeah.
Just set a timer on your phone for 2 minutes, 5 minutes if you've got the time, and just see how few breaths you can have in those 2 minutes. Just slow it right down.
Right.
You can make a little game for yourself if you want, and just slow the breath right down. And even just a couple minutes of breathing will change your state. It really will.
That's a great thing. Anyone can do that anywhere, can't they? Right? Do it on a train. You come out of a meeting and you want to throttle somebody, just find a quiet corner. Nobody even needs to know, do they?
Yeah. Just take a big breath in and a big breath out, and then see how you feel. you know? But it's a great meditation technique. It's just I know we're both like...
Yes. I know. So it's going to be the quiet portion of the podcast. Just the breathing noises.
Oh, but seriously, I can't stress that enough. Just slow down your breath. Yeah. Just slow down the breath. It'll change your state. Yeah.
Everybody should try that.
I know. Hopefully everyone's breathing deeply right
just
now.
Listening. Brilliant. Thank you for that. That's really useful, actually. I think it is. I think we're in what I'm getting from conversations and doing this with people is that there is a real thirst for, or at least an awareness that should be more aware of, like, what am I doing that's good for me? What am I doing that's not so good for me? How can I change patterns? How can I just find a wee bit of quiet? The kind of more harmful habits that we all pick up, is there a way to break that cycle? So, this is really, really useful.
And I think a lot of people, get overwhelmed thinking, oh, now I need to meditate for half an hour every morning and I need to do yoga and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, well, no, just slow down and just add something in, like on your train journey. Instead of scrolling, just stop and breathe for 5 minutes. It doesn't take away anything. You can, or when you're walking or whatever, like, it doesn't need to be these big dramatic lifestyle changes. It's just bringing in these little bits of mindfulness into your day. Eat and just focus on eating instead of scrolling and eating. Little things like that. Pay attention when you're brushing your teeth. Just brush your teeth. You don't need to brush your teeth and listen to a podcast and,
Apart from this one.
Of course, obviously.
But it is because we all multitask all day, every day. I'm terrible for it. I'm always listening to something, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Such a distraction.
Well, and there's lots of education. There's lots of great things about that too. I love listening to podcasts as well, but also giving yourself the space to just like be present.
Yes.
Just be present. Yeah. Which is way easier said than done, I know, but
no, absolutely, but it's still it's absolutely true. Just you can't get it's just too easy. That's the problem, isn't it? Now you just stick something on, you're pottering about, you're moving about the house, but it's on your phone. So it's not like when you had a radio in the background in the olden days.
What's a radio?
But it's in your pocket or whatever. There's probably great value in that, and that I guess in itself allows us to develop greater concentration and stuff like that.
But like you were saying earlier, I mean, we consume things at such a fast pace now, and I think for me at least, sometimes I feel like I'm going to be left out if I'm not on top of social media, if I'm not on top of like the latest podcasts. I don't want to get behind.
FOMO, yeah.
FOMO, yeah.
It's a killer.
It really is. It's a killer. But you must I was, how old was I when social media came out? I'm sounding really old now. But I remember Instagram came out in like my early 20s after I was doing all my traveling and everything. And so I'm very grateful that I had like a good chunk of my life without social media. But surely you must know from your experience as well that things just did things feel like they moved at a slower pace, or did you fill the space with something different instead?
It's a great question. You make me sound really old now. I actually do. I've had cause to think about this, and I remember when Facebook was a website. I remember that. And I do remember, like, if I look back, our social interactions were far more important. And the way that we would just hang out and just do things rather than just everything being immediately available there and then, and you could fire off messages and stuff like that. I mean, I remember the first iPhone, I'm that old.
No, I remember too. I do.
But it was probably the way I was saying this, was a simpler time. Yeah. It was a simpler time, and you had to relate to people in a different way.
Yes.
And you had to confront things in different ways. You couldn't just like go, there you go. Just don't have to deal with that. Yeah, you had to face up. You had to deal with rejection.
Yes,
we were talking about that the other day. Some friends. It's a one of life's rites of passage. Dealing with rejection, talking to people, and that sets you up really well for life, career. Just that's the way things are. But that's missing somewhere now.
I completely agree. I remember when like a boy would have a crush on me and they'd have to call my landline and my dad would answer the phone.
Yes, I remember
and
those
they had
days.
to ask for me. Imagine, like, what's the equivalent these days? I don't know.
That's a problem.
Sending a DM, maybe like the first DM. I don't know.
But you don't have to go through a dad.
I know, right?
But it is. It's. I think it's a part of life. I was talking to somebody who said their daughter was out with their friends, and there was some guys, and they weren't coming over and talking to them, but they were afraid to come over and talk to them now because the dynamic has changed so much that people might take offence that you come over and somehow you're harassing them instead of it being something healthy. So yeah, it is a different world now. We do again. Other guests have talked about this. It's something that everybody seems to have some concern about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next generations coming through.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something that I never take for granted with yoga, though, is that there's no. We don't even need to implement anything or ask people. It's just there's no phones.
Yeah.
There's no phones in the studio.
Yeah. Great.
And to get someone's attention for an hour, like, wow, that's really something these days, right? And so I make very sure not to waste anybody's time. But they also are. It would be a bit weird. I don't know if that's totally true. At least at Cali, it would be a bit antisocial to have your phone out, and so people are actually like talking to each other.
Yeah.
And there's something really special about just having the phone away for the hour and just focusing on yourself. And
I think, you talk about music played a big part in my life. And I remember, and you can even look now at difference, crowds at music gigs or nightclubs, the difference now, how much they were into it and how disconnected they are from the experience they're standing right in front of.
Wild, hey? Because now they have their phones out and they're watching it through the phones. Yeah.
It's right there.
Yes.
You're missing it. And it's just, it lacks something like,
I know.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like we might have got off track.
I know a little bit. It's okay.
It's back. We get our guests to leave a question.
Okay.
For the next guest.
The next one. Okay.
So, if you had to do it all again, right? What would you do differently, or would you do anything differently?
By it, are you meaning Cali?
I think,
or like life.
If you go, we start life. Yeah, the journey.
My biggest regret, and I do have regrets. I know people say, I don't regret anything. No, I do regret this. I wasted a lot of my life worrying about things that never happened. I wasted a lot of time in my head. And, I look back on some of the travels I did when I was younger, and that wasn't even that long ago, 15 years ago, and I can't remember things, but I can remember being worried. I can remember laying on that beach being really worried and not actually experiencing my life. And that's hard because you don't get those moments back. No. And for what? The things I was scared of never happened.
Lucky.
Look at me.
Look what happened.
I'm all right.
Yeah.
Everything's okay.
Everything worked out.
And when bad things happened, I managed it just fine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's I think this is why, circling back to some of the other things we were talking about, why I think it's so important and why, the biggest thing that matters to me right now is being really present with my moments because
see that,
we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know if we're going to get tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
So life's too short.
Life's too short and too precious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you for that. Do you have a question that comes to mind that I can ask my next guest?
I want to know, in their business, what's been the most meaningful thing they've done in their business? Like, what's made their heart throb?
Yeah. Like that.
Yeah.
We've got that one.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. I look forward to asking, insert name here, the next guest that question.
I just thought of another question.
Do
you want to
give... given anyone two questions
I know,
before?
something just came up.
Right, go on.
Okay. Or you can steal this one and say that you came up with it on your own.
I might write this one down and use it.
Okay, because we were talking about intuition earlier, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to know, because I have, well, we won't make this about me. Okay, so for the person who's coming in next, what is something that how do I word this? I want to know, they would have at some point, because everyone's had an intuition about something that they've ignored. What's been the biggest consequence they've experienced from ignoring their intuition?
That's a really good question.
I think it is. Scrap the first one.
Yeah,
Make it that one.
For that.
That one's better.
Great. And for everybody watching, how can they find you? How can they find Callie? Where should they go? Probably
our website, calliecollective.com, or Instagram. We're at The Callie Collective. But we're pretty easy to find. Hit Google. Just hit Google and we'll be right there.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Or maybe there'll be a few new students.
I hope so. Or I hope that at least some old students. I hope at least people during this podcast have just taken a couple big breaths.
Yeah.
If they've just taken a couple big breaths, job done.
Job done. Brilliant. Thanks, Steph.
That
was awesome. Cheers.